Hey everybody, welcome back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com, learningtomix.com, and here on my YouTube channel. And this time out, we're going to take a quick look at the new Waves Scheps Omni channel strip plugin in conjunction with Waves and Andrew Scheps, famous mixing engineer. This is his new signature series Omni channel strip. So this is pretty cool. So this has been out a few weeks now. I've played with it a little bit. I'm still not an expert at it, but I really like what it's doing. And I just want to quickly show it to you. We're not going to dive into every little single control, but I'm going to give you a basic overview, let you listen to it on a few sound samples, and then we'll head on out of this video. But before we get to that, if you like what you see in this video, hit that subscribe button. Also go out to facebook.com/homerecordingmadeeasy and follow me there. And for more tips, tricks, concepts, and training around all aspects of home recording, make sure you go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And if you want 5 free mixing training courses delivered straight to your inbox, go to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Right on the homepage, you'll see where you can get your 5 free quick mix series, $110 value, absolutely free, just for checking out my website. So now let's head on into the Scheps Omni channel. So here it is right here. This is on the master bus here. And we're going to look at this today on the master bus and on a drum bus, a bass bus, a guitar bus, and a keyboard bus. Okay, we're not going to look at it on individual channels. I just want to give it to you in its rawest form so you can kind of audibly hear what's going on with this. So here is the layout of the Scheps Omni channel. So let's take a quick walk through the plugin and I'll show you how I have it set up and we'll listen to some audio. So over here on the left-hand side, we have, now what's great about this channel strip, this is like set up like a 500 series kind of rack, if you can see by the way it's split up here by different modules here. And there's a ton of different modules in this thing and it sounds fantastic. And what's really great about this is not only can you use one or all of the modules at the same time, you can also rearrange them by simply clicking up here and dragging them around. As you can see, I'm moving the preamp section anywhere in the chain that I want, which is really, really cool. So if you want to put, let's say, an EQ before a compressor or a compressor before an EQ, you can easily do that. So let's walk through the layout. So over here in the top left-hand corner, we have our preamp section and our saturation section here. And we have a one simple dial here. Turn it up clockwise, you get more saturation, get less saturation as you turn it down. We have these 3 buttons, odd, even, and heavy. These are even or harmonics, order harmonics, odd order harmonics, or heavy order harmonics. Basically what that means is there is a slight, very subtle change in tonality as you click through these buttons, but it's so slight that over YouTube, I don't know that you're really going to hear it. But when you play with this in your studio, you can hear a very slight difference, very subtle difference. Underneath that, we have our filter section. We have our low cut and high cut filters here. We have our 6, 12, and 18 dB slope. We can turn them on and off just by clicking here. And when they light up orange, they are active. When they're gray, they are deactive. Underneath that, we have what's called our thump button, which we'll show you in a second, which will add a nice little, a low end 2 or 4 dB to the source, which is great for things like kick drums and bass guitar. Next to that, we have our gate section here, which acts like a typical gate that you would think of. Really great for using on toms and drums, which are pretty cool. Works really well. And then next to that, we have a de-esser, and we have 2 de-essers in one here. We have it's called DS or DS squared. We have a top section here and a bottom section here. They're exactly the same. It's like having 2 de-essers in one plugin, great for vocals. We're not going to look at that in detail in this video, but just know that they work really, really well. And you have 2 de-essers in one plugin. Next to that, we have our EQ section. We have a 4-band EQ. We have our high shelf and our low shelf here. And then we have our mid and our tone. Now, what's great about this EQ is it goes from 20 hertz to 20K. And every one of the bands, and you can make each one of those bands parametric if you would like. So in our high section here, we can use a high shelf here, or we can make it parametric with an adjustable or variable Q, which is great. And it's plus or minus 18 dB. On our mid section here, we can do the same thing. We can use a wide bell here, or a narrow bell, or fully parametric. Okay, and the same thing with the tone. And then on the low, we have our shelves, or we have our parametric. So what's really, really cool about this is that we can go ahead and we can customize and kind of tweak in the sections of the EQ as we want to. It doesn't have to be fully parametric or not fully parametric. It could be either or it could be a mix, which is really nice. Next to that, we have our compressor section, and we have 3 different types of compressor: VCA, FET, and opto compressor. We have our threshold here, our gain reduction meter, ratio, attack, and release, the usual suspects on a compressor. We have our mix knob, so if you want to do some kind of parallel compression kind of a deal, or you can put it 100% wet or 100% compressed signal. And then we have our makeup gain down here. We can also do side chaining and things of that nature. Over on the right hand side, we have our output meters here. We can either look at the input signal, the gain reduction, or the output, depending on what you want to do. We also have a brick wall limiter here, which is really cool as well. And then we have our input and our output faders here. So that is the layout. So this is really great. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, really with the limiter, 6 different modules inside this channel strip. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know I love channel strips. I use them all the time by different manufacturers. And the reason why I like channel strips is for a couple of reasons. One, it's convenient to have all the modules in one plugin where you don't have to have separate plugins, which is part of it. And also what's great about this plugin is you can turn on and off by clicking at the top here, each one of the modules. So if you're not using certain modules of the plugin, you can turn those certain sections off, and it'll lower the amount of CPU usage you'll be using on your computer, which is great. So if you just want to use the pre and the EQ, you don't have to use the other modules. Therefore, you're going to tax your computer a little bit less, which is really, really nice. So that's one of the reasons. It's all confined into one plugin. The second reason why I really like channel strips is that you tend to get a more cohesive sound when you use channel strips against all your on all of your singular individual tracks, and you start to glue things together, and they have more of a cohesive type of a sound. Now, unlike this channel strip, things like SSL channel strips by Waves and Universal Audio, or Neve channel strips, where if you were to put all of those across your individual tracks, you're going to get kind of that Neve vibe or that SSL vibe. This particular channel strip is not modeled after any one specific console, but it has a sound all of its own. So even though we're going to look at this just on the buses today, and we're not going to look at it on individual channels, trust me, when you put these on all your individual channels and do your processing as well as your buses, you get kind of a nice glue and a nice warmth to the plugin. And like all the Waves plugins, also you can hit the load button and they just have a slew of different presets here which you could check out. So this is really cool. And a lot of the presets are very, very usable. Great for a good starting point. That's something that you can play around with. So let's take a quick look at how we have this session set up. As you can see here, we have down here in brown, we have drums, we have bass in blue, guitars in green, keyboards and horns in purple. We're not going to listen to the vocals for copyright reasons today, but as you can see across this session, with the exception of the drums, which has auto align, phase correction, other than that, there's not a single plugin anywhere on this session. I want you to listen to this in its rawest form because that's typically where you're going to hear the most audible difference, and you can really get a feel for what the plugin is doing to the session. So what I did is I routed everything down to my drum bus, bass bus, guitar bus, keyboard bus, and I put an instance of the channel strip, the Scheps Omni strip, on each one of those buses. So let's take a quick listen to what we did. So let's just solo up our drums here. Okay, so here's our drum sound here. And it's also on the master bus as well. So I'm going to keep it on the master bus and the drum bus. And here's kind of what we have for our drum sound. Okay, and I'm going to bypass it in the top left-hand corner here. That's before. After. Okay, so again, none of the individual tracks and the drums are processed at all. This is all just with this one plugin. So let's just walk through what I did here. So we're using our saturation, our preamp section here, and we're turning up the saturation to about 10 o'clock or so. Once you get past that 12 noon, it's where you get some more of that crunchy distortion. And I just picked odd harmonics here, but if I go ahead and switch through even and heavy, you probably won't hear much of a difference over YouTube. Maybe a little bit in the snare, you hit a little bit different tone. Yeah. Okay, so there is a tonal difference I can hear here, but it may be subtle over this YouTube video as it's all compressed. But just keep in mind, and trust me when I tell you, as you cycle through these, you can hear a subtle difference more in the snare than anything else. The heavy tends to make it a little thicker, a little bit more beefy. Okay, so we got that going on here, and then underneath that we have our filter section. I rolled off this drum kit at about 39 hertz just to get rid of all the low stuff, 12 dB slope. Not using any of the thump, but let me show you what happens when we turn the thump on. Here's 2 dB. It's 4 dB. A little muddy, but just so you can hear it. So 2 dB gives a nice nice thickness to the snare. Okay, so that's what the thump does. We're not using the gate and the de-esser for this video, but we go over here to the EQ, and over here I'm using a parametric setting on this, and on the high we're using about 3 dB gain at about 3K. We're also doing a little bit of a mid. Let's see here. This is about 150 hertz. We're cranking up about 5 dB again to give a little bit more thickness to that snare. Although we're getting that also with the thump, we could turn that off if we wanted to. And then down here in the tone area at let's see, at 450 hertz, we're taking out about 4 dB to get rid of some of that boxiness and the hollowness. And then I got a little bit of a boost, 3 dB at around 60 hertz to give it a little bit of thump to the kick drum. So if I turn the EQ on and off by this, you'll hear what it does. We'll start with it on and we'll take it away. It's before. There we go, very musical. So use the thump, and then we could turn down some of the low end on the kick drum. Okay, so now we go over to our compressor. We're using the FET style compressor, and I'll cycle it through the VCA and the opto for you. Again, different types of compressors obviously is going to sound a little bit different. We're doing on the drum bus here about a 2-to-1 ratio. We're doing a fairly slow, pretty much slow attack and a pretty quick release here. And here's what we have before our compressor, and then I'll kick it in. So here's before. Okay, we're only doing a dB or 2 of compression. That's the VCA. It's going to be a lot more sensitive, going to have a lot more compression happening there. Here's the opto. Here's the FET. Okay, so it's a really nice way to be able to just cycle through 3 different types of compressors pretty quickly without having to have 3 separate plugins, which is pretty cool. And then over here again, we have our input and our output. So once again, if we take away the entire plugin, we'll let it play a little bit with it, and then we'll take it away, and you'll hear the overall effect of what it's doing here. That's before. After. So again, it's pretty drastic, but it's not well overhyped. It just sounds better. It just sounds really good. It sounds really musical. Okay, so now let's go over to our bass bus here. Let's play our bass, and we'll keep the drums going at the same time. I'm going to take it away here. That's before. Okay, so over here again, we got the saturation cranked up a little bit more to get a little bit more hair on that bass using the even order harmonics here. Again, we can cycle through that. Let it play around again. Okay, so by cycling through the odd, even, and high, it's a little bit more subtle on the bass than it was on the drums. Again, I added a little bit of thump, little 2 dB thump there just to thicken it up a little bit, just so you can hear the difference. I'm not using any of the filters here, not rolling anything off, but we can certainly roll something off really low. We want to roll off like 30 hertz and below. or so for on bass. Okay, again, not using the EQ at all here because I like the way the EQ sounds, just using the compressor, using the opto style compressor here. Again, doing about a 4-to-1 ratio, doing a pretty fast attack and a medium style release. And then what I'll do is I'll take the compressor in and out, and then I'll cycle through the different compressors so you can hear it. So here we go. So the one thing you'll notice that on the VCA, without adjusting the threshold, you're going to have quite a bit more compression. So between the FET and the opto, you really don't have to adjust the threshold. The compression's about the same. The only thing that changes is the tone, but on the VCA, you're going to back off the threshold a little bit. Really liking the VCA. Kind of really warms up that top end, shaves off a little bit of the high end, just gives a little bit more warmer feel. Okay, and then if we take it away completely, take away the whole plug-in completely. It's before, after. Okay, so there we are on bass. So now we come over to electric guitar here, or we'll go over to the keyboards and we'll listen to the master bus here. So let's go over to the keyboards and horns. So again, we have a kind of a trumpet and a keyboard all going to one bus, okay? So just to keep things simple. It's before. After. Okay, so again, on the pre section here, we're doing a little bit more saturation, kind of like the bass, kind of pushing it a little bit. Using the heavy setting here, we have a low cut filter at about 150 hertz on those horns and on those keyboards there. Doing a little bit of a 2 dB thump bump here, just to warm things up. On the EQ section here, let's see, at about 8K, we're doing a 1.3 dB increase. And that is it on the EQ. And then we're using the VCA compressor again, and we're doing a medium, or excuse me, a 4-to-1 ratio with a fairly fast attack and a fairly slow release. So before the plug-in, here's what we have, and then I'll bring it in and you can hear what it's doing. Before, after. Okay, so it's just pushing it up front, making it stand up tall, gives it a little bit more clarity. It just makes it sound sweeter. Now, lastly, let's just take a listen to our guitars. We have like a little guitar diddle solo going on with a little bit of a rhythm guitar underneath it. Okay, so on the guitars, we're using a little saturation here, not too much. We're doing a low cut filter at about 350 hertz at a 12 dB slope, no thump. On the compressor here, we're using the FET style compressor, using a 4-to-1, 3.5-to-1 ratio, pretty quick attack, fairly quick release. On the EQ, we're using the parametric EQ on the high, about 2 dB at about 5K to give it a little bit more cut through on that lead guitar. So I will start with it on and then I will cycle it off and you'll hear what it does to these two guitars. Okay, so again, it just gives it a little more clarity, a little bit more presence. Sounds really, really musical. Now, the last thing I want to show you about this plugin, which is really cool, is that not only can you rearrange, as we said, the different modules inside of this plugin just by simply clicking and dragging them, but you can also add another Waves plugin to this on this insert point here. See this? So if I click this, the plus, and you only can use Waves plugins. You can't use just any old plugin. But let's say I wanted to, instead of the compressor here on the Scheps, for this lead guitar here, I wanted to use the CLA 3A. And there it is. And if I close this for a second, you'll see that it's listed right here. Okay, and if I click this little window, you'll be able to see a larger version of it, which is really, really cool. So you can insert another Waves plugin into the channel strip, and just like with the rest of it, you can move it anywhere you want in the rack, which is really nice, which I don't know of any other plugin that does this. At least I don't have any. The other thing I want to show you too is on any one of these modules, if you click this little window button up here, like on the EQ, it kind of opens it up so you can see it a bit more. You know, it's easier to work on this way. Okay. Same thing with the compressor. If you want to open the compressor again, you're seeing two of them because this is a stereo instance of this plugin because it's on a bus. Okay. Which is really, really cool. And so if you turn one, you're going to see they turn both sides here. You can link them or unlink them together, which is really nice. So let's say we didn't want to use this compressor. We wanted to use the CLA 3A on the guitars. So we can just go ahead and open this up. Okay, so now I'm shutting off the compressor in the Omni channel and I'm just using the CLA 3A, okay? Pretty cool, right? So that is a cool little feature of this. So now last but not least, we got this also on the master bus here. And on the master bus, I'm just doing a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of saturation, doing a little bit of a low cut filter at about 30 hertz or so. On the EQ side here, I'm doing, let's see, about a 500 hertz, 2 dB cut. And then doing I think that's it, right? Just a 2 dB cut. Yep, that's it. Just on the mid side of this. And then the compressor again using the FET style. Just a couple of dB of compression, 2:1 ratio, medium attack, medium slow, fairly fast release. Okay, and that's what I'm doing there. So now if I were to let you listen to the accumulative effect, because it's always better to listen if I take all the plugins off all at the same time, at least on the buses here, I can just click this one button and take all the Scheps Omni channels away all at once. You can hear what it's doing to those 4 buses: drums, bass, guitars, and keyboards. So here we go. We'll start with them on, and then we will take them away by simply clicking the power switch. Here we go. Let me start at the beginning of the loop. That's before. After. before. After. Okay, so there you go. There's a quick look at the Scheps Omni channel strip by Waves. Again, really musical, just turning a couple of quick dials, getting really quick down and dirty. You can hear the enhancement that it makes to the sound. And again, this is only on the buses, not on the individual channels. It's a really cool plugin. I'm really starting to like it. I've only played with it on a couple of mixes, but the mixes that I've done with them, I really got some fantastic results. And it's a great plugin. It's not a big CPU hog. This I think normally runs around 150 bucks or so US dollars. They always put these on sale. I picked it up for 49 bucks. If you see it for 49 or 59 or $69, jump on it. It's a great Swiss Army knife of channel strips, and it just sounds great. It's hard to make anything sound bad. The only thing I would caution is you just don't want to overcook things. What I noticed is if you push this thing a little too hard, it gets a little bit funky. But if you just kind of keep things subtle and just kind of sweeten it, really does a great job. So again, thanks for taking a look at the Scheps Omni channel strip. My name's been Dave with HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com. Make sure you go out and get the 5 free courses on my website. Download them today. No obligation, nothing to pay for. 5 free courses, over $110 worth of mixing training, absolutely free for just checking out my website. And until the next video, I will see you guys all soon. Take care.